Hey guys, so I still have this cold, so hang in there. I'm gonna get through it, and hopefully this all sounds okay. Still a little baritone, but that's all right. We need to move along now that you guys have gotten the day hiking thing down. We need to move to an overnight, so let's get to it. All right, the first thing we're gonna need to do is start testing your gear. So when you're doing your hiking, well, day hiking or just walking around your house, you might want to test some of your gear. So if it's raining, try out your rain gear. Make sure your shoes are fitting right. Try different socks and figure out what works best for you. I love toe socks. They're a major pain when you're actually out there hiking. They're always getting turned inside out and stuff, but man, oh man, I never get blisters and they're so comfortable. Darn Tough is probably the most popular sock out there though. So try different ones, see what works best for you. Pack fit, super important. Go ahead and load it up, see what it feels like. Go around the block and just adjust things. Watch some videos on that. I mean, I live on YouTube practically. So just get on YouTube and see how to fit a pack. So it's worth taking the time to do that. And the other thing I want you to do is get used to how high you want your trekking poles to be comfortable. And keep in mind when you're in soft dirt or snow, they'll sink in a little bit. So in general, you want a 90-degree angle when your arm's straight. I'll put a video in there so you can see it, but 90-degree angle is what's most comfortable for most people. Just start there. The next thing you need to do, I think it's a great idea. Some people think I'm crazy, but going in the backyard, if you have a backyard or a front yard, or just to a park or whatever, and practice setting up your tent over and over and over till it's so easy that when you're tired and the wind's blowing, and even try doing it when the weather's terrible outside. Oh, great time to check out, see if I can set up my tent. It's safe. You don't have to worry about something bad happening. And if something bad does happen, you're just going to drive home, so it'll be okay. One thing I like to do is when I get a new sleep system is to sleep out in my backyard. So that way I know if it's warm enough, comfortable, things I might want to change. It's definitely worth the trouble of doing that. And once again, it's a low risk situation. So start out testing your gear. Okay, that brings us to the big three. So the backpack, your tent, and your sleep system. So for all of these, I'll just say use what you have or borrow it from somebody you know. So that's the best way to start out. It helps you decide what you like and don't like, and it saves a lot of money. I mean, if you shop on Amazon, Walmart, and buy things used, Facebook Marketplace, we have a used sporting goods equipment place here I buy a lot of stuff from, and sell a lot of stuff there too as well. I will mention the REI Flash 55 because I think that's a really good beginner's pack. It's just a little over 2 pounds and it's just so easy to work with. But my son has one of those and I was very impressed with it. I think it's a good beginning pack, but there are a lot of them out there. So as far as the tent goes, once again, use what you have. You probably want a 2-person tent, whether it's 1 person or 2 people to start with, just to organize gear and have a little bit of space. The ultralight tents like I use, the Z-Packs Plex Solo, I think that's a little tight for a lot of people. It's worth it to me to have such a light tent, and they're extremely expensive. They're ridiculously expensive. So you're probably going to want to start out with a 2-person tent. It can be freestanding or trekking pole tent, so don't be afraid of a trekking pole tent. I've had no trouble setting them up, and I would honestly say they're not one bit more difficult to set up. I don't know where that got started, but from people that probably didn't set them up, so they didn't actually know. But once again, you're going to go outside and practice, right? So once you're out there, if it drives you crazy, try a different tent. That's why we practice. It always comes down to practice, doesn't it? Practice, practice. I would like to, as far as tents go, I'd also like to mention Eric Hansen has a really good video on budget gear, a couple of them actually. I'll link at least one of them below so that you can watch that, but fantastic person to follow. The Featherstone 2-person tent from Amazon just blew him away. And from everything I can see, it looks like a really nice tent. So it might be a really good beginner tent for you. I checked it today, which is January 2nd, 2025, and it wasn't available yet. So its availability comes off and on, so keep an eye out for that. So the next of the big three is the sleep system, so let's dive into that one. All right, the sleep system. I make a pretty big deal out of this for us older hikers because a good night's sleep makes all the difference in being able to go the next day. So don't skimp out on this part. Borrow what you can, but a lot of this stuff is actually pretty expensive. So if you have a sleeping bag that's rated to whatever temperature you're going to be hiking in, always remember that rating is about 10 degrees off. In other words, if I have a 30-degree bag, it's probably going to be really, really comfortable to about 40 degrees. So in general, I found if you add 10 degrees to that temperature rating, that's the comfort rating. Some bags give both comfort rating and their survival rating, I guess is what they call it. But so if you have a sleeping bag, go ahead and use it. Try and stay under 3 pounds if you can. I know that's kind of hard too. If you have a synthetic bag, they're probably going to be over 3 pounds, especially if they're rated for this time of year. But try and use a bag that's under 3 pounds, both for bulk and for weight. Maybe most importantly is the sleeping pad. So I use a Nemo Tensor all season. It has a pretty high R rating. So R rating is just like insulation in your walls. It tells you how well it insulates you from the ground. So I think it's in the 7-ish area. I'll have to look that one up, make sure. But you want to stay at least around the 5-ish area. So there are a lot of pads that fall into that category. There are many different brands. I think a budget one might be the Paria, but even the Paria sleeping pad's gonna be around $100, so they're not cheap. And if you went with like a Neo Loft, probably the thickest pad you can get right now, it's like 5 inches thick, 4 or 5 inches thick, but it's like $250 and almost 2 pounds, 1 pound, 14 ounces, I think. That's by Thermarest. So I'll put some links down in the bottom. You can decide on some things that you might want to try. I would definitely watch a lot of YouTube videos and see the reviews on them. Like everything else, there's pluses and minuses for every single one of them. I love the Nemo Tensor is really super comfortable for me, so it's got to be comfortable. That's the number one thing. A lot of people don't like the horizontal baffle system of the Thermarest, and other people it doesn't bother them at all. For me, noise is a really important thing too. If it's really noisy, because I flip and flop so much, I'm not going to get much sleep anyway. So try it out, see what you think, and definitely test a lot of them. And the last part, and I think it's an important one, is the pillow. So I use an inflatable pillow. It's a Trekology 2.0. I've been using that for years. There's several people you'll notice on these channels that use that particular pillow because it's inexpensive and is really, really comfortable. So you'll have to experiment with those as well. There are a lot of different choices for that. And don't skimp on the sleeping system. That's all I got to say. All right, next is everyone's favorite, food. So take what you enjoy. I mean, it's just an overnight, so you can take almost anything you want. However, watch the weight. I mean, don't throw in 3 apples and a block of cheese and that sort of thing. It's only one meal, so one dinner. So cheese and crackers, freeze-dried meals if you want to keep the weight down. If you notice your pack's getting too heavy overall, and that's something I should talk about too. I don't think you want to be over 35 pounds. So if you're hitting that 40 mark, it's not going to be any fun. It just gets to be work, and it's hard on the body. So try and stay, I'd say around 30 to 35 would be best for an overnight. And I realize if we're using budget gear, it gets a little heavier, and don't worry about it too much, but try and keep the weight down a little. So yeah, leave the apples at home. Water is the heaviest thing, so that's the bummer. Gotta have that. There are a lot of bars out there. The Pro Bar, Cliff Bar with nut butter. I usually mix up a bunch of different types of nuts. Macadamias are really high in fat and protein. They're a great one, but they're a little expensive. So peanuts are the budget gear for food, but they're wonderful. I definitely love peanuts. So anyway, mix up whatever you like. The most important thing to me anyway is the coffee in the morning. So I do carry a stove so that I can make coffee. So I do plan on making a video on testing instant coffees are, I don't even know, some are freeze dried, some are crystal. I don't know. I need to look into that, but there are several really good ones. So comment down below any particular coffee you want me to test. Certainly the Starbucks Via is the one I use the most. But all right, now we're going to be planning the trip. So I could do a whole video on planning, but I'm just going to hit the high points for right now. And there are a lot of good ones out there once again. So your first trip should be an overnight. Do not plan a 2 or 5 day backpacking trip just yet. So try and keep it around 2 to 3 miles one way, not too much more than that, or not a whole lot less than that, so that way you get the full experience and you're close enough. If something goes wrong, you can just pack back out if you have to. To find a trail, I would just Google trails in your area or wherever you want to hike. And then there are also really good apps out there like All Trails. I use Onyx, Gaia GPS, etc., etc. There are a bunch. So use those to try and help plan out your trip. I think the big thing is to find a spot you really like and pay attention to elevation gain and loss to get an idea how difficult it is. If you're going to gain 5,000 feet of elevation in a mile, yeah, stay away from that one. Try and keep it relatively flat. And make sure you've practiced all those things we talked about to make it easier once you get there and set up. When you get back, probably the most important thing you can do, in my opinion, is to sit down and review how things went. So I actually have a journal that I keep. Actually, it's right here. Ta-da! I just realized that. Backpacking. So I will actually review things that worked, things that didn't work, things I'd like to change or do differently. And that really helps me dial in my gear for whatever kind of hiking I'm doing. So certainly backpacking overnight, I might have different gear than I would if I'm through hiking. Through hiking, you sacrifice a lot, for sure, especially comfort. And so go over that once in a while and adjust as necessary. So overall, if you are around 35 pounds of gear, and that'd be about right for that overnight. Make sure you've done plenty of practice at home or in the backyard and that sort of thing before you leave, so you're comfortable setting up your tent. You know your sleeping pad's comfortable. Yeah, it's that practice thing again. And let me know how it goes. So once again, make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell, make me rich and famous, and let me know if you have any questions. We'll see you on the next one. See ya.